What does it mean to be someone's best friend is by simply knowing of them and their interests, or the things you're willing to do and sacrifice. Like Soulburner, one of the saviours of Link Vrains.
Or what about Klein, the absolute punching bag of the Sword Art Online universe?
I'm Bombros and they're Capricorns it, and it's our job to analyse their weapons, armour and skills to find out who would win a fight. Hey guys, so hey, remember my old Versus series that I did? Well, I'm sort of bringing it back now and we're doing a really obscure matchup for some reason. So yeah, let's see how this goes. Okay, so we're just going to give a little brief description of our characters' backstories. So Soulburn, as a child, he was kidnapped and forced to duel in order to help create an AI. Eventually, the duels did stop, but unfortunately, he would go on to lose his parents. However, despite that incident, after seeing Playmaker go and Blue Angel who would defeat the Tower of Hanoi, he was inspired to become a hero himself.
So Klein is just a very unlucky young adult. He gets sucked into a game that he purchased for probably way too much money, that then threatens to kill him. He quickly meets a friend, but that friend is very distant, that friend being the main protagonist, and also just a bit of a wank. Now, what is Klein's whole thing? Well, he always is on the good side from the get-go. He has to face many hardships, and by the end of the series, we see how he lays on the floor paralysed as the main character basically does everything.
Okay, so the first thing I'm sure you guys are all going to be wondering, what kind of fight is this going to be? Is it going to be an actual fight? Well, no. Why would we? They both go in virtual worlds. It has to be a fight in the virtual world. Now, I know what you guys are probably thinking, but wait, isn't Soulburner a Yu-Gi-Oh character? They can't technically fight. And at least with Sword Art characters, they technically use virtual weapons. Well, I'm going to use Jump Force logic, where the Yu-Gi-Oh characters will have their deck and they can still summon monsters and they'll just attack.
But in actual facts, if this was the real world we're talking about, then Klein would kick your characters just up and down the road.
My character technically knows judo.
Yeah, my character knows how to throw a punch properly.
But to be fair, my character was pretty bad at judo as he failed to lift his grandfather, so I guess if it's a real fight, it's going to be a tie.
Klein wins multiple fisticuffs in his own series.
Is that in the real world, though?
That is in the real world, yes.
Is that canon?
It's canon. Oh. It happens in the second season and the movie. He does lose that fight in the movie, but he does inflict damage. So,
you're gonna hate what I'm about to say. Then
go ahead.
This is the biggest cop out. If it's a real fight and if they're allowed everything, technically Soulburner would still be able to access his real life duels, which can also summon holograms that can physically hurt you still. So
Klein's actually got experience with that. In the movie, he has to take on something similar, and sure, he loses quite badly actually. But that's because he'd never seen it before. Having already seen it, he'd probably be more used to it and know what to do, especially if he's in his SAO form, where he doesn't have to worry about his real-world stamina.
Oh god, this is getting way too weird.
I'm better at debating than you, I think we're coming to find.
Yeah,
You didn't plan this far ahead.
That was gonna be like my entire argument for a real world fight, is that Soulburner has access to his real life duels, which summons actual holograms which can deal physical damage.
Shall we go purely virtual?
Yeah,
world?
okay, well there's the mini joke fight if it was a real fight. If it's fists only, tie potentially. If it's allowing everything with that they have in the real world, potentially, maybe Klein, I guess. Right, so in the virtual world, Soulburner uses a deck called Salamang Great Cards. And what does Klein have access to?
Well, Klein doesn't use cards or monsters to fight. He actually uses a katana most of the time, seeing himself as more of a samurai of honor. But by that he means he'll wave his samurai sword with enough power to basically cut a mountain in half. But he never does that in the show, so I can't confirm it. The closest he gets is basically pulling his sword out of his sheath by about an inch and then putting it back, and the boss having been cut in half completely. And that's his biggest feat of strength, I believe, in the early parts of the season.
Fine. Okay, let's see what I can think
You've kind of pitted a character that is very much about hand-to-hand combat against
a guy who plays a card game.
But
he's like really good at playing. Hang on.
He's very good at playing cards, but I think if
hang on.
if they're in like a 5 foot space, I'm pretty sure like you've lost.
hang on, this is fine because most of his monster cards can help him out with stuff. Let's see. Trap card he has access to, who is he has stuff which can help him heal himself or not take any damage. One of his trap cards is a continuous trap known as Gates of Fire, and it states, activate this card only when a card or effect that would inflict damage is activated. Neither player takes effect damage if the amount is less than or equal to 300. Does Klein have any, like, abilities where it deals, like, extra damage, essentially?
He has more than 300 health, I can tell you that.
Yeah, so...
his abilities that, well, in Sword Art, there are sword skills, which basically are multipliers for every attack you do. You've got your basic ones, and then the more leveled up you get, the more access to you get. Best example of this actually being the main character in the fight against the lower levels, where he just tanks every single hit they take, and he heals before they can even get in, like, a quarter of the way down. So in this case, depending on how high Klein's level is compared to the cards, I don't think they could inflict enough damage to be able to actually defeat him, if we're talking purely virtual. Mm-hmm. If we're talking about him going up against these things in real life, then I'm pretty sure he'd just be eaten.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe that trap card might not do much, but it would still help Soulburner out a little bit, even if it's not by much. Let's see, what else does Soulburner have? Well, let's talk about his ace monster, which has an effect which isn't exactly too important, but I just had to reference it. This would be the main monster that he would get as quickly as possible to deal with Klein. It's none other than the monster card known as Salamangreat Helio. It has an attack of 2,300.
That would be very good and efficient if it was high enough to deal enough damage. But as we see from quite early in the season, I think it's around a year in, we see the main character, and granted the main character is a lot more powerful having cheats, but we know Klein is somewhere around his level, being able to keep up with him. And so we see him tanking hits that are that high. His health bar is around 8,000, 9,000 at that time, I believe. So figuring that Klein's at his absolute most powerful in the original game, then I feel like he could tank a few of those hits before going down. Enough time for him to defeat it, maybe. Mm-hmm. Depending on how much damage he can inflict with his sword.
Yeah. Anything else I need to mention about his deck that he has access to? Oh, well, even if he's able to destroy a monster, that's fine, because Soulburner has access to cards which are able to resummon them again, such as... hang on, let me find it. It's here somewhere. Oh yeah, Salamangreat Sparks, which can... hang on, don't worry guys, I'll find it somewhere. Let's see here. Well, I know for a fact that a lot of the monsters are able to just special summon themselves from the graveyard, so even if Klein is able to destroy them, he will more than likely be able to resummon them again. And a lot of Soulburner's strategy relies on swarming the field with a bunch of monsters and then using them as material to go into a link summon.
Now, Klein is a bit weaker on this front. He's not really used to fighting multiple enemies, and when he is, he's used to doing it in a team. So if he's on his own, then he will struggle here, and it will probably give enough time for anything that they are trying to do to actually work. The only thing I can see him having here as an advantage is the possibility that he has experience fighting off a lot of creatures at once-ish. But that's, again, in a group, so we don't know how good he would be solo.
And, okay, I guess if I want to be fair, around Season 2, when we first get introduced to Soulburner, he did rely on Flame a lot to be, like, the brains of the group, to help him with dueling strategies, but since losing him, he has grown to become more independent on his own. So, yeah, that's something Soulburner has an edge over.
Now, Klein has always been a natural leader. He was not ever, faced off, especially in the original game. He'd already been a guild leader before, even going into his first VR experience, so he knows how to lead his team. And he does it so well that they all make it to the final fight of the original game, and they all make it, which is mad in a boss fight where the boss can kill you in a single strike, as we see against multiple people who were quite literally cannon fodder. So there is that, but leadership isn't really a debating thing here, is it? Because it's a one-on-one fight.
Yeah, so There's not much that's going to lead
He
to.
might. I would argue, though, that would make him quite tactically sound. So if they're setting up tactics, he might be able to block against them, set up around them, or play off them. But that's all guesstimations.
Well, for Soulburner, he has some decent achievements, such as being able to beat tough duelists, such as Revolver and Windy. And with Revolver, he only ever lost to Playmaker. And if you're telling me the best friend character could beat someone that only a main character could beat, it says a lot about them. Has Klein ever beat, like, a final boss character that was only defeated by the main character?
No, Klein is kind of, as I said at the beginning, a punching bag in the Sword Art Online series. He's played up for jokes, and sometimes you'd think he's actually doing it on purpose. Because when you see him when he's with his guild and not with his friends, he's quite powerful and he knows what he's doing. But when he's with his friends, he plays it up for goofs. Like, for example, he takes the mick out of the main protagonist by saying that one of the female people in his group was his new girlfriend in front of his actual girlfriend and the rest of the people who all had a crush on him. Harems are weird. But, what's it called? He then endured a kick to the face from the most powerful player in the entire game, which would have done some severe damage. And he gets up fine after about 2 seconds. Which, sure, there's no pain filter in ALO. There's nothing along those lines. But it still goes to show that his character is powerful. And could probably tank a few hits and keep marching on. Showing incredible endurance and determination to win a fight. I'm going to keep going because I can see you're trying to talk.
Well,
no, go on.
Well, okay, I'll be fair. Well, because Soulburner is a Yu-Gi-Oh character, they are able to tank hits from a lot of powerful monsters and usually are able to walk it off fine.
Well, are they able to tank the hits, or are their monsters able to tank the hits?
It's a mix of both. If monsters in, say, defense mode, how I'm going to interpret that in this fight is that it's mostly going to be the monster that takes it, but most of the time they do also feel the damage as well, even if it's just a monster that's taking it.
I was going to say, because at the end of the day, your character is still human, aren't they?
Both of these guys are.
They're both human. So if you're going up against someone with a sword and you're supposed to be tanking hits against a katana, then that's a lot harder than tanking hits against a monster with when you have a health bar.
True.
Like, do the people in Yu-Gi-Oh have health bars in this?
Yeah, they have life points. They're essentially health bars.
So would they be able to, like, say they get a good slash on? Will it just be like an SAO where they have like a slash across them and it's just shown in like red, or will it be an actual like damage?
I think it's a mix of both.
It's a mix of both. So basically, what could happen is Klein just gets a lucky hit, knocks one of his arms off, and they can't really play cards anymore.
Well, they'd probably have to survive that, and it would go into life point damage.
So he would be able to continue after that.
Yeah, he would.
So in that case, then, how much damage would he have to inflict? Because if he's got that close at that point, he can just start swinging.
Oh god, this is going to lose my argument, but technically, in the anime, most Yu-Gi-Oh characters only have 4,000 life points.
I think the sword that he has does about 1,000. I'm not entirely sure. I might be lying there. I probably am. But I remember his sword is powerful because it can one-hit people.
Well, if it's about 1,000, like I said, Soulburner has plenty of cards which are able to heal him infinitely, for the most part.
Infinitely. Would that be a matter of taking out the cards and then no longer infinite, or is it just forever infinite?
It depends. Like with the trap card I mentioned earlier, it's continuous, so it would stay on the field and play as long as the damage is less than or equal to 300, which, again, maybe not too much, but it is something that could help him. Or another trap card that he could use. How trap cards works that you have to set them first, like an actual trap. You set them up first, and you wait for the right time to use them. With this one, let's interpret this the best way possible. Energy of Fire, it's a normal trap card, so he only gets to use it once. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can target one Salamine Great Monster in your graveyard. Monsters cannot be destroyed by that battle. Or return that target to the deck, and if you do, gain life points equal to its attack. So, for example, if Soulburner had like a monster of like 3,000 in the graveyard, he could return that to the deck, and then he'll recover life points equal to 3,000. So if he's on 1,000, he'll gain 3,000.
Okay, so he can basically gain a lot more than he had originally.
Yeah.
But my question is, that says monster, like quite clearly.
Yeah.
He's human.
Well,
So would it still count?
in a fight scenario, based on what I know from Jump Force, it will count.
It will count.
Klein counts as a monster, to put it simply.
To be fair, he is a monster with his blade.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll give you that advantage then. Like, he's able to heal forever.
Yeah.
So it'd basically be a matter of Klein wearing himself out until
Yeah.
he runs out. The other guy runs out of cards. So it's just a battle of attrition.
Mm-hmm. Another factor I will mention as a weakness is, well, it is a deck, and as much as Yu-Gi-Oh characters tend to just use plot to get their cards, there is a good chance that Soulburner might break, in other words, get a really bad hand. Like, he could, for example, get 5 trap cards which do nothing. If they do nothing and he can't do anything, then he's kind of stuck just taking hits from Klein until he can think of something that he can use.
So it's just RNG. And also, if I'm not mistaken, in the anime, is it also turn-based still?
Yeah,
Or can they kind of just do what they want?
Well, in Yu-Gi-Oh! It is turn-based. It would go like, well, if they were having a Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel, well, it would essentially go Soulburner's turn, then Klein's turn, then back to Soulburner. But they can have some back and forth interaction.
Yeah, because if it's going by Sword Art rules, it's an MMORPG. So it's just hit the thing until it dies kind of thing. So we'll scrap the whole take turns thing, otherwise it will be unfair. We'll say he can just unleash as much as he needs to.
Yeah.
But like, if he's got a hand, then I feel like he'd have to play that entire hand before he gets his new one. Or is that something I'm making up?
How it works is that you draw like your 5 cards, and then you use that for a bit, and then you have to like draw a new one.
See, I'm
draw one card. So yeah.
So basically, he could keep getting just cards with nothing, or a card with just obliterate on it.
Yeah, an ability that which is specific to Soulburn that he can use is called a skill. Certain duelists have access to a thing called a skill, and they basically help out with duelists in the situation. Soulburner's skill, I will mention that skills have only been shown in speed duels, and the only way you can use them outside of a speed duel is if you purposefully cheat, as shown with Queen, when she used her skill in a non-speed duel. So I doubt Soulburner would be able to use this much, but it is an ability that he could potentially use. Basically what it says is that he can give up as many life points as he wants, basically his health, and in addition, for every 1,000 life points that he loses, he gets to draw 1 card. So if he purposely loses 3,000 life points, he gets to draw 3 cards.
He gets to draw 3 cards, but he's incredibly vulnerable.
Yeah, so
It's catch-22.
Yeah, pretty much.
So basically, he could either have... It's all RNG with him.
Yeah.
Whereas with Klein, it's relying on his RNG to be bad and swinging his sword fast enough to get rid of all 4,000 of his points.
Mm-hmm.
So, at the end of the day, Klein wins.
Well...
Unless he gets unless Klein gets unlucky and...
Yeah.
I can't pronounce it. Soulburner?
Soulburner.
Yeah, I thought so. What's it called? Unless Soulburner gets incredibly lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Or just normal lucky. To be fair, I feel like it's a stalemate.
Yeah.
Probably Soulburner winning if he just keeps up good form. But how many cards do you get in a deck, or is it just infinite?
Well, the typical rules are about 40 to 60 cards, 40 being the minimum and 60 being the maximum. But given that this is the anime we're talking about, they essentially have like 1 million cards in their deck, as decking out never seems to be an issue for them.
Yeah, that does make sense. I mean, it is a show.
But for the most part, it probably is about a 40 to 60 card deck that each character can have.
So he would be facing... Let's go for the high end. 60...
Alright, so let's assume that Soulburner has a 60 card deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about 60 cards.
Well, this isn't factoring in Klein's, like, 1 trump card, the healing crystal.
That is true. That is something that could help him out. If Soulburner is able to defeat Klein, drop his health to 0, he does have that revive thing. That he
has the revive that Kirito gave him in the very beginning of the first season. I almost forgot about that.
Yeah.
Mostly because it never comes in handy again.
But the issue is, though, does he have it in AOO, though?
It doesn't really matter because we're using all-time stuff.
Yeah.
We're using, like, peak stats in one and then, like, the skills from... If I was being incredibly honest, if I was going for the ALO version, he wouldn't even need it, because the way magic works in that game is he could just heal himself infinitely.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, he'd run out of mana eventually, but, like, he has to fight 60 monsters, some of which could do nothing.
I'm sorry, did you say magic?
Yes, he has magic. He refuses to use it in
okay, I guess so.
a non-life or death situation, even though he does use fire magic by accident. And that's where I'd like to play my little trump card.
Oh.
When he's using magic without knowing, he masters it. He uses fire spells with his sword. And he does this very, very easily without much help, to the point where he doesn't realise he's using magic, he thinks he's using another skill. And then when it's later confirmed to him, he's shocked that this fire skill that he's been using is actually magic. Meaning that if he took up magic, he would probably be able to do a lot better than he would think. Like, it's normally his friend's territory, he wouldn't normally touch it. But in a life or death situation, you'd feel like he would have to.
To that I say this. Spell cards originally were called magic cards, and a popular thing to do against magic cards is that there exist cards which can negate magic cards. If we interpret that in a fight scenario, Soulburner has the ability to just negate any magic ability potentially that Soulburner has.
They're still healing crystals though.
Well, yeah, obviously he'd still use that as that's like a 9, but if he were to use magic, Soulburner could potentially negate that.
True.
To an extent.
That is actually a very, very good point.
Like, if we're interpreting this in a real-life fight scenario, like, this isn't a Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel, if we're trying to use their cards and apply it to, like, a real fight, then technically a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Characters could negate magic by the fact that they have cards which negate magic cards.
This is where it's a good thing that he doesn't normally use magic, isn't it?
Yeah, so I guess that won't play too much of a factor.
It won't play too much into Klein, because I feel like he would only use it as a last-ditch situation, even if it was life or death, because the thing about Klein is he's very proud. He's got quite a bit of an ego on him. Even though he does get his arse handed to him a lot, he's very skillful, and he's also a very good leader, very powerful player. So what we need to know is, how much would he be being cocky in this fight?
Well, the context is that an accident happens with both their respective virtual worlds, causing the two virtual worlds to sort of combine into each other. And both of them took it upon themselves to try and solve the issue for some reason.
They would do that. One's a known leader. I don't know what yours fully does.
Soulburner, well, once he gains the courage and confidence and self-confidence, he probably would be the type to just do it. Considering their MC is kind of looking for an AI who got deleted.
Yeah, it probably would make a lot of sense that them two would. There's a plane going overhead and it's quite annoying.
I'll just... Okay, so there's like the main thing, so final statements, I guess. Any last minute things you want to mention that Klein may have an advantage over?
He defeats an entire army.
That may cause some issues.
Yeah, I've just remembered it now, but in the final season so far, season 4, Alicization War of the Underworld, there's a big fight where there's a lot of American players harassing their position. And when Klein and his members come in, sure, there's a lot of them from ALO, but there's not that many. There's only around 1,000. And Klein must kill around 200, 250 in this one fight alone, which makes it seem like a 60-card thing would actually be doable for him. So I just thought I'd add that in as a last little minute bang.
And within the context of Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, the most a single duelist is allowed to have on the field is 6 monsters.
Yeah, I feel like he could fight 6 at once. He's fought 6,000 humans at once and survived. He even fought a second army that came in afterwards. He didn't win against that army. In fact, everyone lost against that army because it was unplayable against. But that ended in a one-on-one duel between the main character, who is broken.
Well, he's got other cards which can help, like, raise the attack of a monster. Like, this one card, Salamangreat Sparks, it can... I'm sorry, Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards take too long to read. You need like a magnifying glass, bro. Like, I'm not even joking. I'm trying to read
I can see you just like
this.
squinting more and more to try and see this.
Oh, wait, this one could be... Alright, so what attack power would you say that Klein has? Like, if he was to do, like, 1 slash, what would it potentially have?
Basic attack.
Yeah.
About 200.
200?
Yeah, I'd argue.
Okay, well, maybe for like one of Soulburner's weak monsters, there is an equip card he can use to equip it onto a monster known as Salamangreat Sparks, where if it battles an opponent's monster, aka Klein, its attack becomes equal to the current attack of the opponent's monster it's battling during damage calculation. So, saying Klein's able to deal, like, what was it again?
200?
200, the monster in question would have the same attack power as Klein, and it would kind of knock them both out, essentially.
You'd think.
Yeah.
But the difference is, that monster's going to be attacking, what? How often?
Like maybe once, maybe a few times.
A few times, just 200 hit. Whereas Klein isn't bound to the whole hit and run. He's bound to the whole slash.
That is true.
And he's using katana, which is famously known for very quick play, sword play, and then the sheath. Basically, you want to defeat your enemy as quickly as possible, meaning that sure, this monster could get 1 to 3 hits off against him, which do about 600 damage. But as we established, you'd probably have somewhere around 8,000.
True.
So it would be effective, especially if he goes a bit foolhardy against this monster and doesn't think and use one of his more like 1,000 damage attacks.
True.
Which would weaken him significantly. But if he goes in with a basic slash and just a combo attacks it, then he'd probably defeat it before it even got a strike in.
Alright, but thanks to the equip spell, if the equip spell leaves the field, aka if the monster is destroyed, the equip spell goes with it. If this card is sent to the graveyard, it can special summon 2 Salamangreat tokens. Basically, if Klein's able to destroy this monster with the equip card, 2 new monsters can be summoned to the field instantly. They have 0 attack and defense, so they're mostly just used as fodder, really.
So basically, it's just a couple of extra things that he's
pretty much. And I think that might tire out Klein eventually.
It would if it wasn't a 60-card deck.
Yeah.
I feel like sure, some monsters are going to be a lot harder to fight than others, but I think once you've fought an entire army of people, then I think that's kind of just it. You've done. You've beat it. Now, obviously, there's a thing with that army that I obviously neglected to mention of they all had very, very basic tier loot. But you've got to remember, that was a battle of attrition, just like this one. So it wasn't a matter of, keep fighting we'll just keep fighting and we're all the same skill, so we'll just keep going until all of us die. It was a matter of, we're going to keep throwing people at you, and then we're going to keep throwing people at you.
Yeah.
Until eventually you're all gone, because we've got a lot more people that are all just meat shields. They Stalined it.
Yeah. I guess that was a bit of the strategy I had planned for Soulburner, I guess. Any other things I want to mention? Well, this isn't really an attack that Soulburner can do, but it does happen quite a lot. He can summon out like a burst of fire. It's not really an attack, but it's more of a visual. But that might psych Klein out, thinking, oh my god, this guy can do fire.
Although I would feel like he'd just respond with a fire attack from his sword.
That is true.
It probably wouldn't even be aimed at Soulburner. It would be a attack aimed at one of his monsters that he already had on the field to show, I have fire too, haha.
Yeah, the way I see this fight working is that Klein would specifically try to aim to attack Soulburner himself, and while Soulburner would just defend himself quite literally using the monsters, and hoping the monsters would be able to attack Klein quickly, and hoping that would be enough.
Now, speaking of monsters, am I allowed to bring in Silica's pet, or is that against the rules?
Well, that depends. Is Silica's pet a part of Klein's arsenal?
Technically not, but he does hang out with her a lot.
He
has the pet. I don't know what the pet is. It's a little dragon, and it does a really small amount of healing points, but that could make a big difference. But that is a matter of, technically, it's part of Silica's arsenal, not Klein's.
I'm gonna say no for that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because again, Soulburner doesn't have access to Flame, but that's because he lost Flame.
Bozo.
Hey, don't talk bad about it. He was really upset losing over an AI partner that he treated like a friend.
Bless him.
It was really emotional for some reason. He was my favourite Ignis.
Gonna pretend like I know what that word means.
Yeah. So that's how I see the fight working. So, anything else? Again, this is much, but I guess now's probably the best time I can mention it, is that Soulburner can fly around on a hoverboard.
Where was that earlier?
It didn't seem too important, but I feel like now's a good time to mention that.
Yeah, it probably is.
In Link Vrains, people can ride on hoverboards that can actually fly around, and they can go at pretty fast speeds.
Yeah, I think the most that they have in Sword Art Online is a horse.
Yeah.
They do have electricity, and they do have artificers though, so they probably could, with enough time, invent it. But obviously, it's a fight where 2 worlds have merged. So I highly doubt Klein's going to be walking it. Well, to be fair, if I was going to be really, really unfair, Klein does have guns.
Yeah, and if you want to make it fair enough, in ALO, Klein can fly. So
Klein has his own wings.
Yeah, so
and he has weapons that are, including guns. I believe he uses a AK-47 in the GGO portion. It's a very small portion at the beginning of Season 3, but by the fact it's canon and is shown, it means he has access to those weapons. Again,
bear in mind, we're not exactly compositing characters, we're just mentioning like a good amount of feats that they have. But if this was gonna be an actual like serious fight, we probably would have to composite a lot of Klein's abilities. Same with Soulburner.
Yeah, because you'd have to probably pick one area that they were in, like one game, and then soul it down to that. Because if we're doing Klein in GGO, doesn't have enough information about him to know if he would win. But if you're combining that with like Klein from ALO and Klein from SAO, it's a factor of pretty much, hey, I'm a fairy with guns that also has unlimited health.
Yeah.
Come at me, bitch. That's going to have to be bleeped.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, so I just felt like I'd mention that because, what about, and even then, even if you could use the hoverboard, you can only use it in a speed duel. Whereas with this, and again, 50-50 chance, it depends on the circumstances. An issue in the virtual world is happening, and Soulburner and Klein take it upon themselves to sort it, as their main protagonists are kind of busy doing something else. So once they go into the virtual worlds, they see these new things that they've never seen before. Then Klein mistakenly mistakes Soulburner as the cause of all this for some reason. And so they fight. Klein tries to swing at him as hard as he can, but Soulburner is just quickly able to either dodge it or tank it enough. Then Soulburner is able to summon out a good amount of monsters to help him out. Klein's able to take him on decently as well. The fight continues for a while, and neither of them seem like they want to give up. However, the main protagonists show up and solve the issue, causing the virtual worlds to be separated. Klein and Soulburner look at each other with a little bit of respect, as they still took it upon themselves to try and solve the issue on their own. Well guys, you've heard it from us. Now it's up to you in the comments section below this video to tell us who you think would win in this fight.
And just remember, in any fight, in any situation, Mr. Bean wins, hands down.
I've been your host, Bomb Bros.
And I've been Capricorn Zit.
Well, and we'll see you guys next time.
Adios.
Bye.